Good evening. I'd like to call tonight's planning board meeting to order. The first thing we would like to do is a slight change in the agenda, scheduling. I'd like to deal with the approvals not required.
And I will make that motion to take the agenda out of order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So tonight's first thing on the agenda is, we have a plan in front of us, approval not required for the applicant.
We're talking about Holbrook, the River Road.
Yes.
Yes, I'm Tom Bunker with BSS Design. What we have is two lots that have two dwellings on them, and one of them is shooting over the lot line. We're just adjusting the lot line so that each dwelling conforms to the setbacks. Lot areas have not changed. Still have the minimum 100 feet of frontage. A letter from Eladio that he would consider them both to be conforming lots when this change is made.
Right. I move that we endorse the approval not required plan in front of us.
I would second that.
Any further discussion?
I've never seen a sine wave for a property line, but that's fine.
Sine, cosine, and...
I have a question. How do you describe that in the deed with the Mets and bounds? What's the language you use to describe that
It
lot?
says running by a curve, turning to the left with a certain radius and length. It's a little different.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for that. I just had to know. All in favor? We all said aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Thank you.
Thank you.
I move that we return to the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, tonight's agenda is, the first thing is executive session. So in order to move into executive session, we have to have a roll call vote.
For the purposes of litigation strategy.
Yes, it's for the, we're discussing litigation, so we would like to do this in executive session. So we're calling for roll call. We'll start.
Nope, we have to. I move that we move into executive session for the purpose of discussion of litigation of 3 cases.
I'll second.
That the executive session is necessary to protect the interests of the planning board and litigation.
And that the executive session is necessary to protect the interests of the planning board in litigation.
We have a motion and a second.
And a second.
All in favor?
We have to do a roll call.
Roll call, yes. We'll start off.
Aye, Ken Fiders.
Aye, Doug Brown.
Aye, Pat Kerfoot.
Aye, Jim Fox.
Aye, Robert Leary.
Aye, Paul Dreyer.
So it's unanimous. So we're now in executive session.
Okay, we have to ask,
Blanket authorizations, Frank, huh?
Go to the minutes.
Ooh, they voted.
Start at the minutes.
Yes, thank
I'll
you.
be in touch.
Jump back to that. So, we're back in session. Anyone else coming in? We're back to, Mr. Secretary, do we have any minutes of?
Yes, I do. Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of the minutes of January 5th, 2016.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. We've finished approval not required. The next thing on the agenda is Falmouth Village Cultural District. Brian, do we have anything new on this?
You should have a draft letter in your agenda packages. You asked me to draft something up for you for your consideration. It's just that, a draft, and you can amend to your heart's content here, but you wanted to send something to the, along to the Board of Selectmen after your joint meeting.
Do you want me to read it?
Yes, go ahead, Pat,
Okay.
I'm looking for it.
All right, this is the letter, as Brian said, to the selectmen. We brought it up at the joint meeting, the Village Cultural District. Dear Chairman Jones and members of the board, at its meeting on January 12, 2016, the planning board voted to endorse the concept of a cultural district in the vicinity of the village green and through the downtown area, as per our joint meeting discussion last December. As you know, a cultural district must be walkable. Therefore, special attention needs to be placed on sidewalks and walking areas, both for the needs of the district and pedestrian safety. The planning board is very willing to assist in this endeavor and looks forward to advancing this application with you. And it's got your signature on it, Jim.
I think, Brian, that's a tactful way of expressing our concerns,
Yeah.
Imagine that.
I think it's good.
because if we let Ralph write the letter,
Yeah, I think this works.
yeah, I think it works.
Then we'll get it on letterhead for you, for your signature. Oh, we need a motion and a vote.
Okay, I move that we
We have-
approve.
okay. Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead. We'll have discussion.
yeah, okay, I move that we approve the letter just read in regard to the Falmouth Village Cultural District.
Would second that motion.
Discussion.
Okay, this is rather bland, obviously, and we do have some big concerns. I think the concept is a very good one. I think there's a tremendous support in town from everybody, including the Board of Selectmen. However, this has to go to the Commonwealth Cultural Commission for approval, and it's unlikely they're going to approve the length of this cultural district as currently proposed, as I understand it. Ralph brought up a good point about the private road going up to Highfield and the access going up there, and that's probably not going to be approved anyway. I'm just wondering whether we can use the terminology in the original, excuse me, document that says walking areas must be compact and walkable, and there's some terminology in there, if I remember correctly, that might tie this down a little better without getting into a real battle at this time. There's some terminology that's in the cultural district handout from when we
Well,
discussed.
I think, Paul, the way I'm reading this is, we're going to have an opportunity to express that to them.
Why not indicate what was in that document? It's a compact, walkable area that's well-defined,
They read it, they know it's there.
you know, and maybe we should go back to that terminology.
See, I see this is the selectmen's job is to do this. We just wanted to let them know that we endorse it and that they can go forward. I don't think we have to do the groundwork and map it out for them. I think the discussions they have and any hearings that they pursue will hammer that out. And if it does come back to us for another form of endorsement, I think at that time, embrace your
I'm not
concerns.
suggesting we take a position on this now. All I'm suggesting is we use the terminology that was presented to us in that document and make sure it talks about the compact and walking area that was in there. I forget what else is in there, but there's some terminology in there that might be helpful.
I agree. Brian, will we have an opportunity to weigh in on specifics?
I believe they have to hold a hearing. I
Is
would
there any
think,
referrals from other departments? Or?
I would think, I don't know the exact procedures, but I know they do have to, this was just a letter of intent that they sent off to the Cultural Commission. Then they have to put together a whole application, they have to have the hearings, and so what they simply did was initiate a letter of interest. And what my sense is, yes, they would have some sort of process to go forward, both the state process and
I'm in agreement with Paul that at some point, we got to weigh in on that issue and make it, whether it's done in this letter or at another time.
My sense is, this is pursuant to your joint meeting. The only steps they've taken are to initiate a letter of intent or an interest. I think the application goes off to the cultural district.
Is that thunder and lightning?
Omen, yeah.
Hope so.
Or the Russians. But my sense is you'll have an opportunity to weigh in, if not at one of their hearings, certainly as part of the application process. But I think the letter is simply something that the board wanted to do just to reflect. In fact, they don't need your vote. They can send the application on.
Okay.
But they just want to have your input a little bit. And this is a little bit of input. I think when the rubber hits the road, obviously, when the application moves forward.
Yes, Pat?
I got the impression at the joint meeting that they simply wanted the planning board's blessing on such a concept. And they understood full well that they didn't indicate anything about going up to Highfield, but they understood full well that extending it to the Artists Guild might be stretching it a bit. So they know that the extent of the district already might be stretched.
The only thing that I'm familiar with is actually for more than a year or 2 years, a year and a half, we've been talking about this a little bit, about the cultural district and going all the way to Highfield, and the EDIC loaned them money to pave their roads, to try to tie it into the concept of tying it, Highfield to Main Street that's the spirit of the whole thing. So this inability to go up a private road without sidewalks is, somehow we need to communicate that
Well,
issue.
I think when we talked about this last time, the letter was going to be plain. We specifically put it has to be walkable, and these are pedestrian things in there. That, I think, covers all that the planning board can possibly cover. Our word has been out there, it's being sent to them that these are concerns. If it's not followed, that it's not our fault. We made it, that they should consider this. I mean, that's all we can do as a planning board, I think.
My understanding, during discussions of the repairs for the road going up to Highfield Hall, all the abutters had to put in a certain amount of money, and you're right, EDIC did fund some money for Highfield to do that. The left side of the road, or the south side, I guess it is owned by the town. And there were discussions to put in a sidewalk there, and the town decided not to put the sidewalk in. They could come back and say, okay, we're going to put the sidewalk in to accommodate this district. I don't know if they do that, it's a fairly high expense. But they had an opportunity to do that some time ago, and they chose not to.
I could see this if that road was directly opposite Main Street, but it isn't. That's a pretty windy stretch down, especially down towards the end where it crosses Locust Street. So I think this letter says all we need to say.
And it's therefore, special attention needs to be placed on sidewalks and walking areas. And I think that is pretty clear.
They'll have to get themselves a culture bus and park it up there, and if somebody
Right.
wants to come, they can call them up and say, can you send the culture bus?
Because I'm sure these have to be fairly ADA compliant as well. So going up a hill in a wheelchair, I don't think it's going to happen.
It'd be nice at the minimum if it began that the Falmouth station at EDIC is renovated, and the bike path begin right there and come down.
I brought
And then have a
that.
sign that says, oh, by the way, Highfield's up the hill.
I feel like the sign needs to be on Main Street, the corner of, like Palmer Ave maybe, by Queens Byway or something,
That is-
somewhere visible.
That is actually called North Main Street there, if you want to know the name of the road.
Okay, well, whatever it is, that's the corner that first comes to mind, or maybe it's closer to the green or somewhere. If it was on that corner by where Palmer Avenue intersects North Main Street, then you'd have an opportunity to say, cultural extension over here, if, for rugged people that can venture up the hill. And the same thing at the other end. You can't really include the Artist Guild, but you could put the sign at the corner of Gifford Street on the east side of the corner, and then say, a cultural extension maybe. I don't know how it works, but
Well,
anyways.
I think we've,
The only other thing you may want to do in here, we're willing to assist, but you may want to say, you encourage you to submit the application to the Commonwealth Cultural District, encourage them to do that. And some of these things are going to be addressed by that district. They may not approve the length of it, they may not approve, because it has to be, they have pretty rigid requirements.
I think we're micromanaging something.
Yep.
We don't
Yeah,
I'm
we have
okay.
nothing to do with this.
everyone's made valid points, but I'm fine with the letter.
Yeah.
Me too.
So it's been moved and seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll mean,
That's okay,
on
good.
principle.
That's
Okay.
what we're here for. Believe me, that vote can count someday. Don't, never give up on that vote. Okay. Transportation element goals and policies. Yes.
My understanding is that the selectmen were waiting on some changes. But I just got this email from about an hour ago. But it can be on for the special town meeting, and they're willing to put it on for their agenda of the 25th. Even though the special town meeting warrant closes 22nd, selectmen can vote it on at their Monday night meeting. So I know I don't have anything for you other than that information, so.
But we finished this and ready for them to deal with it, right?
Yes, they have the final version.
Right,
yes.
so-
So I'll make sure they understand they have the version that this board has amended at their request, and that,
But that's the one they were given at the joint meeting, Brian.
and then they had, I think at the joint meeting, yes, it was, right.
It was.
It was.
So they wanted to have a further chance to look at it more
Right.
before they gave a definitive approval
They
to us.
changed a couple key words, and we said no, and we changed them back again.
No, that was previous to that.
I've lost,
So
And then
I'll just make sure they understand that that's the version that
we have voted.
we have voted, you have voted, and that they can act on.
Okay.
Which they said they were going to do.
I will make sure they understand that that's the version that they can act on.
Okay.
My understanding is tentatively scheduled for the 21st.
Because the only thing I remember that was brought up is a term that Sam Patterson said, no, that is very well understood, meaning of that term, so we didn't do anything further on it.
So the joint meeting version is okay. Got it.
Are we ready to move? The next item on the agenda is the accessory apartment bylaw. This has a new date on it, so we probably should read it, huh?
Fortunately, our email server, we could send and receive internal emails. We could receive external emails, but any emails that went out to an external address were rejected. So your agenda packages never got to you. So obviously you haven't seen this. So let me just have a moment to just explain the changes to you. And if you want to take no action on it, that's perfectly fine. I also sent you, or actually, also in your agenda packages, you'll see I sort of have your bullet points for your policy questions that you went over. So the changes you see in this January 11th version really address the third bullet point. So my recommendation to the board is let's just focus on one policy at a time. Some little overlap, but if we focus on this third bullet point in this version, hopefully you can come to some sort of resolution as whether or not it should be allowed as a matter of right or not. So what I've done, the only changes you'll see here, under definitions, I've added a note. Been discussing some of those things that we're going to have to add or delete or make amendments to other sections of the bylaw. So just to help things along, it's just oh, by the way. One of the suggestions was that we move one of the affidavit requirement out of requirements. If we put it in under enforcement or monitoring. So what I've done is I've removed that. And on the back, you see I've added a new section called monitoring. And just simply lifted that language and placed it there. Nothing else has changed other than the formatting. Then under procedures, you can see the strikeout and in the underline. So what I've tried to do is make sure they fully understand under procedures. The board was sort of concerned about site plan review. It's just, well, it's meant many things. You also want to make sure there was a component to the design review. So what I have added is parenthetically, after the first sentence, prior to the issuance of a building permit for an accessory apartment, a site plan review, parenthetically, design review, because we don't want to change the bylaw, the site plan review bylaw too much. So just to let everybody know that it's also a design review. And the planning board taking into account the design standards, requirements, and purposes. I deleted an intent, and what you'll see is design standards, requirements, and purposes. So it's consistent with the article you have in front of you. And then I added a sentence that said, the application for site plan review shall include the information contained in that section, unless you waive it. And for your information, you'll see it in the bold and in the highlighted area. That's not part of the bylaw. But just so you know, that's what's required today in a site plan review, when you do the design review. It's, you can submit such materials as may be required by you, unless waived. Intended to integrate new development to existing landscapes, aesthetic assets, screening, and design features including to site planning, building placement size, design compatibility, exterior permits, construction materials and finishes. That's in your bylaw today. And what I've simply done is in this procedures section, added that sentence, you must have the 195C information unless you waive it. It might be something that you don't need. That way they're not coming in with everything and you say, oh, well, we don't need it. And I've added an informational note, just for your edification, that, we will have to amend, this is Ralph's point, he brought up. We'll just amend section 192, which is the site plan review section, to not only is it 1,000 square feet of new construction or a change of use of requiring 5 or more parking spaces, we'll add the words in any application for an accessory apartment. So it's clear. It's in both sections. Then under enforcement, there was a concern about, I think it's expressed by Pat, about removing it. Pretty hard to remove it, or wasn't proper language. So I struck in that language and added the words shall be restored to single-family dwelling status in a manner that complies with all the requirements of the building code. That's be at 90 days, which I think is a little bit more clear. And so that's what I got done between last week and this week for your consideration.
Question on monitoring?
And I've added, what monitoring is taking that affidavit section out of requirements and adding a brand new section, enforcement and monitoring. I'm sorry, a new section, monitoring.
I'm just wondering, does it make any sense to say that we're going to be relying on the section of the bylaw that requires every apartment to be inspected by the building inspector every year?
I wouldn't, that's another general bylaw. Right now, your zoning bylaw would require an affidavit. I wouldn't reference general.
And how about in compliance with all other bylaws? Because if they don't get the inspection, I mean, that's...
Well, you don't have any authority to enforce a general bylaw. So you might want to just, for their edification, have a note, please note, whatever that chapter of the Falmouth Code that requires an annual inspection.
That's my point. Everyone's gonna be bringing up, well, is there any other bylaws in there? We should be able to say, yeah, there's another bylaw that they're supposed to have it inspected.
Yeah, but that's not your role under zoning.
Okay?
You're here to enforce, or you're here to apply the zoning bylaw. It's up to the health department, under their regulations, to be inspecting these apartments. And we don't want to mix oranges and apples.
We can do that verbally if somebody brings it up and said we're relying on the health department to do that, or we're relying on the police department to do something, or any other department. It's not our job.
Not technically your job, but please be aware that, you need, whatever it might be from other general bylaws, right? Or other licenses, whatever it is you're doing. So that's what we got done for you, and I think that addresses the third bullet point. So take some time, we'll see this again next week. Sorry for the email glitch, but those things happen in tech world, I try to understand it. And there you go. Any
We're
questions?
still going to work on the question?
Yes, Pat?
Brian, you said 248-195C, which is only the first sentence of that highlighted, and then you've expanded on it beyond 195C. Are you proposing to expand on that?
Which, I think you have
Or do I have,
an older version of the
it says
bylaw.
2012?
We amended, when we amended design review, it was like 2013 or 14.
Maybe we need updates on
What-
these
what-
things.
what I-
Time for new books.
I got
Well,
one.
they don't have them downstairs, so what I recommend you do, and I actually do this,
I do
is
too.
I go on the town's webpage, I go to the
Go to
code,
Falmouth, print it, I got it.
and it's
Okay.
there. That's the most up-to-date one, and then every other year, they have
It doesn't
the,
have the nice plastic cover, though.
we can't find the GBC binder either.
Give it to me, I got one of those
I do
binders.
too.
I'll
I got
put
one
it
of my
in.
kids.
There's an
I was just opting for a new book.
There's an all-hands-on-deck
I got
on
one
the
of them.
GPC binder. No, yeah, but that's the language, the latest and
Okay.
greatest language.
Thank you.
Off we'll go. Any other questions for that? So take your time, take a look, and off we'll go. We'll try to tackle another bullet point after we've had this discussion. But I'm going to work on, single-family dwelling, or should it be attached or detached? I'll let you guys digest all this first.
Are we still going to work on the questions that we've got here?
I don't have anything in here. Oh, I'm sorry, unless you want to actually address the policy itself.
Why not?
Sure.
Go at it, Doug.
Still early-ish.
Accessory apartment policy questions. The first one is, should accessory apartments be allowed for new construction or only for existing structures as part of a reuse? What if there's a total knockdown, rebuild of an existing structure? Today's bylaw allows accessory apartments as part of new construction.
And I have that little note, at your last meeting on the 5th, you agreed that would be yes.
Okay. Okay, so that one is done.
Right. And the last one, too. At your meeting of the 5th, you said yes.
Okay, right.
So you have these
So the next one.
3 in the middle.
three in the middle.
Should accessory apartments be constructed only within or added onto a single-family dwelling? Or should accessory apartments also be allowed within accessory structures, such as detached garage or barn? Today's bylaw only allows accessory apartments within or added into a single-family dwelling. So we've talked about that a few times. I thought we kind of came to the conclusion that if it was new construction, it should be attached, and if it was existing, a detached structure could be converted. Was that did we come to a consensus?
That's where I was confused last time, Doug. It was like, huh? What happened here?
Mm-hmm.
And I would prefer that it be attached. If it's old already, it's there, you've got a detached garage, you've got a detached barn, okay. But if you're going to build something new, like a 2 or a 3 car garage, and you want to put an apartment above it, it has to look like it's part of the house.
It has to be part of the house.
Yes,
I
that's
agree.
what I meant by it has to
A
look like
garage
it has.
doesn't have to be attached.
I'm saying in case of this, it should be.
For new construction.
For new construction.
construction.
So it would be for accessory structures,
Existing,
existing
right.
accessory.
Are we gonna put a date on it, or can they build one and
No.
2 years later
Yeah,
come back
see-
and
see,
apply
that's-
for it?
That's what
That's the
I,
problem. Can't put a date on it.
and that's what I was getting at the last time.
I would rather, myself, I would rather rely on the architectural language that we have to protect us and make that stronger. Because there's plenty of garages that could be built that look perfect in a neighborhood and are ideal for an accessory apartment that would be knocking out of the box.
You can't put a date on a bylaw effective of this bylaw? Any building
I didn't-
accessory, I mean,
Say that I
No, you
asked the
can't.
question, I asked
You
the same
can't.
question. No, what I'm saying is, what's to prevent somebody to build something? They sell it, new family moves in town, they would love to have an affordable there, it's been existing for 5 years. What are we doing? I'm just saying, is it really real to say new construction? I'm just asking a practical question.
Well, at least it's realistic in the sense that when people want to do something, they want to do it now, most of the time. They're not going to wait 2 or 3 years to make a deal, happen. Most people are living in the present, and they're going to buy a piece of property based on what they're going to do at the time, not what they're going to be patient and wait 2 or 3 or 5 years to call it existing. So, I mean, I think the wording for new construction will help in the long run, but I agree it can be circumvented. But I think at least the intent will be there, and less people will take advantage of it.
I think the only way around having to put a date on it would be if the condition was that it's attached. So that's what we're dealing with, is detached versus attached. And if it's detached, then we have to put a date on it. If we don't want a situation that you have somebody building something new, like you were talking about, in 5 years, then deciding that they want to turn that new garage into an apartment.
I think we should allow it being detached, but if it's what it takes to get the vote of the board, and probably, because what I'm listening to is we need to have town meeting, I'm hoping the board's reflecting issues that we need town meeting, I'm ready to go along with making it attached as opposed to having nothing. So, I think sometimes we do have to compromise to make a first step. And I also, if you do attach it, it's like you have to kind of design it so it looks, it does have a mindset
Do you have
that you're really trying to make it look like it's part of the house and not another
Yeah.
issue.
You
So
have
I
one
understand the
corner
spirit of
touching.
it. So, and that's why I could easily go along, not that I agree with it, but I could definitely go along with it. Not for you guys seem to feel that way, and I think you do.
And what muddied the waters for me is when we were discussing new construction. When we first started talking about this on the local comprehensive plan, I just envisioned it as existing houses with existing outbuildings that could be converted. And the thought of building a new house with an accessory apartment hadn't occurred to me. And having listened to the discussions here, I'm more amenable to that, and I can see the reason, the rationale for it. So then it comes into detached or attached. So for me, that's where I'm willing to go along with what other members of the board think would pass town hall. Or town
And that's
meeting.
really where I'm coming from too. I'm concerned with getting it past town meeting.
Yeah.
Then,
We're making sausage here.
Well, you may as well, then you just don't change from the existing. You have essentially an attached garage, and you don't use your outbuildings, and we'll come in with that and see if they like it, and then you can work on detached stuff later.
Later on, that's what I was thinking of, start the process.
Ken's worry,
Yeah.
or concern was about making 2 units on a lot and all that.
And I'm listening to Ken.
And if you put it, the thing about that is the making the two will kill it at the town meeting, I believe that. But I don't believe that we should exclude existing buildings that could possibly be accessory apartments. As we know, there are a lot of them in town. Some houses have old barns that could be apartments. And that is why I was saying existing, I mean, could you put a date at existing as of the date of the bylaw?
If it moves it, I'm in favor of it.
I mean,
Or
with-
you may-
what
We
would
tried,
that-
we've done that a lot in the past, and recently it's been thrown out on that whole uniformity. There's no difference between a building
Okay.
built in 1980 and 1981, so you have to treat them equally. So we've gotten away from dates, because we've had bylaws tossed by the Attorney General's office.
Got you.
So let's go,
I can
let's just
see
keep it
that.
simple.
Right.
We'll just
And-
keep it the way it is
And if
today.
somebody builds an accessory building and 5 years later comes back and they want to make it affordable and it works, who cares?
So, and then we can think about what you may want to do for other buildings. You know, because Ken was right too, you have two dwellings on a lot, you'll take a garage and make the whole garage a unit, where the idea was, okay, I have a garage, I have cars underneath, and a room above that has a stove.
But our clauses, we're not forgetting, we're saying about the architectural integrity of
No,
the
it
whole
says-
thing.
then it becomes two units, essentially a micro unit on a lot. And the town hasn't allowed more than two dwellings on a lot since 1959. So I think the wise thing to do is keep it attached. Do these other things that you're doing. When the question comes up, you can always say, well, it's only attached today, it's been attached for the last 20 years, and there are practical difficulties about allowing folks to convert a barn or a shed or a chicken coop into a dwelling unit.
So you're saying we shouldn't do existing or just attached or both?
Detached. Whereas right now, new construction, I can build a brand-new house with an in-law apartment.
It has to be attached
I can put it above the garage,
Right.
but it has to be an attached garage.
or a substantial breezeway or something,
Or a unified effect, right.
or unified. But if there's something existing and it's just not going to happen.
Not going to happen. It has to be within the dwelling unit, this principal dwelling unit. Either it's an existing, a tear down, or a new construction.
So then that would
That's
be
it, right.
staying in, as it says, with the bylaw that is now.
Stick with what you got today.
Under that scenario.
Right, and make it simple, go with that.
I've seen some pretty nice detached garages that really lend themselves perfect for a,
Well, maybe that becomes a special permit for a detached. Well,
We can work it on that, we can work that line too, to have two dwellings on a lot, one in an accessory structure, that's not by right, that's something else, that's a
Right.
different animal.
that would be a reasonable solution for it, for the perfect setup. That's where the special permit comes in.
But-
So why don't we, why don't we think about that? We have a by right scenario here.
Right,
If it's an attached garage, whatever,
yeah.
you're good to go by right. And let me work on then, like we said, we might have a situation where you have a by right accessory apartment and a special permit one. We have till November, well, actually, we have till August, September, to work on whether or not we want to have a special permit provision for essentially two dwellings on a lot.
That's a good idea.
But it has to conform to all the other accessory apartments
Yes.
to get there, not just two dwellings on a lot. It has to
Right.
have the architectural,
It can only be 18 feet high.
right.
Right, it's a detached garage, but it's got a room above that has cooking.
Good job, I like that.
Okay.
I like that.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
So.
Yes, Paul?
This is going to be circulated to other boards?
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna have to,
What's
because
the
we're,
process for that?
I think once
When we agree to something, or is it you
Yeah,
circulate?
once we advance these drafts, because they're constantly changing. This, probably once we get through these policy questions and have something to send out to people, you've answered all your policy questions, we'll get it out to folks.
Okay.
I think that's the way to go. All right, so the accessory apartment constructed only within the single-family dwelling by right. and then detached, I'll work on a special permit. So I'm going to go back and change this a bit,
Yeah,
but that's okay. That's no problem. We have no problem with that. Doing a good job.
that solves the issue I keep bringing up about the
Yeah.
perfect building.
Right.
That we're just saying, no, if it's perfect, then everyone's gonna agree to it.
So it might be I have a barn, I'm up in Hatchville, on Hatchville Road or whatever, and I've got an old barn, I want to convert it to an apartment, you know, there you go. Okay,
Good. And then it would be worth it for them to go through that little extra process.
right. You
And
just
this,
can't-
this I
just-
find acceptable now. Mentally, it's
I do too.
just a much nicer
Okay.
fit.
You know how much I don't like special permit land, but
I know.
I think this is okay in my book. Because we are doing it by right, so people have a choice.
The pretty straightforward one is by right. When it gets a little more dicey with a detached other structure, whatever it might be.
So we've just about
Take a look.
answered the next bullet point. Should accessory apartments be allowed as a matter of right with a site plan review by the planning board or by special permit from the Board of Appeals, or both? The goal is to find the right regulatory blend that results in more people using the bylaw to produce housing opportunities while protecting neighborhood community character. Today's bylaw allows accessory apartments by special permit only. So we just answered that.
We just did.
Yeah.
That's what Brian says he's got to work on.
It's gonna work out.
Keep dumping
It's
more
good.
up there.
It's good.
The last one is accessory apartments are a special permit use in residential and agricultural zoning districts. This is 85% of the land area of the town. Should this still be allowed, or should there be a curtailment in the zoning districts where accessory apartments will be allowed either by right or special permit? I feel like they should be allowed everywhere where they are now.
When I read this before the meeting, that was the one that kind of,
That's the one I think you're going to get
Yeah.
a not two-thirds vote at town meeting.
Yeah?
Yeah.
When we were talking about this in the housing unit for the comprehensive plan, and I'm not sure, but I think it might have been in Judy Barnett's plan too. It's been a while, or her report. It's been a while since I read that, but I think what she was recommending is that we do something of this nature where there is perhaps on a sewer, public transportation, and we're looking towards greater infill. So I would think we could look all along 28 and downtown and out further out towards T-Ticket for greater infill of that nature. But, you know, we had talked again about the greater infill as being from here, say, up to Jones Road, just as an example, in this area. We might look at it in village centers like North Falmouth, but I think we need to look at it in a more restricted nature.
If we were going with what, on land use and village centers, we could actually, we've identified them, and we could actually do a measurement from the center point and say, these are the areas, and that would definitely start to cluster the growth in those areas. Is that a reasonable?
There's just multiple districts. So which district are we going to allow this in?
We can't do it by defined villages? I mean,
Well, you have to map something, and you have to create a district then.
well, actually creating districts, on our local comprehensive plan, we've always talked about our growth of our villages
Okay.
and being specific to that, right? I mean, that's,
Yeah.
and we've talked about both on transportation, and that's been the whole view, is that if there is going to be growth, we put it there and take it away from further out there to stop sprawl. That was
Yeah,
the,
okay, well, you know, again, this will be a use allowed either by right or special permit in various districts.
so we have to create a village district.
You have to create
Right.
some district, right, and then map it. That means you're taking away people's business 3 and business 2 land and mapping this. I think that's more the multifamily district we're getting at.
Yeah, we,
All right. This is really, I have an accessory apartment, I live in Mira Vista, I'm on the sewer, I could be on any street, and I just want to build a new house, I want to put an accessory apartment in.
I gotta get some extra income to pay for my sewer connection.
Right. So I think you need to, we'll talk about that some more.
Yeah, I think this needs some
Yeah.
more
I
work.
think your multifamily districts where you talk about your village centers,
Okay,
mixed use, apartments, this is all about residential construction for housing.
And the big one is you want to allow it over 85% of the town by right. I don't know the answer.
I don't have a good answer for you at this point. It's just that, you're gonna have to work on that. Or you might just start off in
And I'm not,
residential zones. So-
I'm not afraid or opposed to having it fail at town meeting the first time,
Right.
you know?
We
Okay.
usually do this type of.
And I think it's something that, it may always fail, but I think if, as a town, if we want to do this, it's gonna be the whole town that agrees to it, or the whole town that doesn't, and town meeting's a vehicle for that, and that's where the ultimate debate's gonna take place.
Okay. That's fine. It's their decision ultimately.
Right, and I think bringing it to debate is our job, and letting them decide is their job.
Okay. Well, we can still leave that blank for now. We can work on bullet points 2 and 3. And we'll see, I'll try to get, we'll work on it every week. We'll just incrementally, we'll get some stuff in. I think we're getting closer and closer. Okay. And then once we're done, I think, like February, I would think we can probably get something out to other boards. And the housing community.
Going in the right direction.
Moving on to general correspondence. I guess this is a letter from Assistant Town Clerk regarding campaign financing. If any of you are running, you should familiarize yourself. I'm not going to go through it. We all should know this from previous times. Call this a question. And regrettably, I've got a letter here from our own Ken Medeiros, sent to Michael Plummer. And we all knew this. Ken needs to be stepping down for his personal reasons and work. And Ken, we're going to miss you. You bring a point of view that I think is important to us.
Well, maybe from time to time I can come in after May and still
Well,
snap
I'd
at you a
like you
little
to
bit.
watch us on television and come in and swing at us a few times, because you always make me think about the other side of the argument. So I think,
But I'll still be here for another 4 months, though.
I know, I'm just,
Don't throw me out yet.
I'm sorry I didn't read the
And
effective date.
and you may come back again another time and run for it.
You never know.
Yeah.
Well, he's staying on to the May election. I should
Yeah, I
have
know,
read
yeah.
that whole part.
So that way there won't be a vacancy.
There wouldn't be a vacancy, and, well, I appreciate the time and effort you've had with us. Thank you very much.
We'll have a big party for you.
Oh, thanks.
Okay. Future agenda items.
So your committee reports will be on the next agenda?
Yeah.
I thought today's agenda was a little crowded, but if you have any committee reports, maybe we're thinking about that for next week.
I've been asked to, and it's going to be long out, but I said I would bring it up. The EDIC has had discussions about potential land swap, things about industrial land, and they keep asking me, is it on the agenda? And I said, well, our agenda's pretty full right now, and I'm really involved in a lot of things, but can it be on a future agenda sometime?
You got it.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, what I'd like to do
Yeah.
is you to find an appropriate time when it fits. It could be a month or two from now. I just want to say that it is going to be on a future agenda.
Yeah, what we can do, back in 2007, we wrote a reuse, land use report for the Dentown manager. So there are some properties owned by the town under the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen, and there are properties under the Conservation Commission. And some don't always make a lot of sense. And we made some recommendations about transferring lands from Selectmen to Concom and vice versa. We had some recommendations about some tax title properties on Glenwood Avenue and T-Ticket Highway going for affordable housing. It actually happened, and the housing is up and people are living there today. So it's probably a good time to revisit that report. And one of the items in that report was senior center sites. And I think we had some swaps in there with industrial land zoned industrial under the jurisdiction of the Concom,
Right.
going to someone like the EDIC. So let's put down a revisitation of that 2007 land use.
That's a perfect aspect of it.
Okay.
And I won't make any comments now, but I'll have plenty when the time comes up.
Yeah, well, I think it's, the town of Sandwich just packaged together a bunch of town properties and auctioned them because they've been sitting there since 1980. Tax treasurer's deeds.
Yeah.
And they're out in the middle of nowhere. They should probably either go to conservation or put them out to auction for people to purchase for housing.
Do we have any of those?
Sure do. Absolutely. There's lands that really should be the Concom's. And there's lands that really should, the selectmen may want to consider having under their jurisdiction. And there's lands up by the tech park that we were going with the fire, remember there was a fire station proposal, we had this with the Petersons and whatnot, and, but there's properties up there that were rezoned back in the day, back in the early 90s, that were privately held, that are now been bought by the town with the Conservation Commission. So either rezone it, but it's in the middle of an area that's, that's got industrial uses, why would you do that? Should transfer that to someone who should be thinking about properties and their uses and in the right jurisdictions.
Then I also wanted to ask for a future agenda item, and the restructuring that was been brought up in the past about, the development arm of the town. Is there any update? Should we ask to be updated on that again?
On a future agenda, sure.
When it's available? Because I'm certainly interested in that. They've laid out these, what I think is far-reaching philosophy, and
when there's something to report, right now there's nothing to report,
Right.
but let me put down, what's it called? Planning and Community Development
right,
Department. Planning and CD Department update.
when there is something new.
When there is something new, right?
Right,
Right now,
I
there's
don't want to
nothing.
initiate the discussion. I want to hear about what's happening.
Yeah, my understanding is that you're going to study it. And we'll see when that report comes back. Right now, there's no one been hired, there's nothing going on.
Yes, Paul, sorry.
I'd like to suggest 2 items for future agendas. One is, back in September, we had a presentation of the Transportation Master Plan by McMahon Associates, and a draft report came in October. I'd like to get an update of what's going on with that. Has it been finalized? Are there going to be follow-on work? It'd be nice to know what's going on with that project.
I'm meeting with them this week, so.
Sorry?
I'm meeting with them Thursday, so I'll have some information for you fairly soon.
You didn't tell me that. I didn't plant this for you to say that.
You're right on top of it, Paul. It's unbelievable.
Made you look good.
What else you
Yeah.
got there, buddy?
Hard to do.
The other thing you're probably not going to answer, but some time ago, the town approved money for review of the bylaws. As we heard earlier, we have some conflicting bylaws and some outdated bylaws. Can we get a status of what's going on with the review of the bylaws?
Sure.
I think that can be a big issue.
We'll give you a little update. We have had some discussions, and we'll further those a little bit.
And your meeting is on Friday, right?
Believe it or not, there was a meeting Monday this week where the issue came up.
See?
You're the psychic connection.
Paul is on top of
They're on
things.
top of it. But yeah, that's an issue, and I, believe it or not, there's some things in the wind, in the works. So I might have some relatively interesting information for you next week on that, but we'll see.
Okay.
Well, we have just finished our agenda items.
I move adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
See you next week.